Hi, y'all. It's Bridget Cutshaw with Real Things Living. Today, my guest is Beth Ann Ramos. She is a health advocate, I said her name right, and a children's book author. Can you say hi, Beth?
Hi, good to be
I,
here.
s- I appreciate you taking the time, and we're gonna catch up. We used to be in a mastermind group together, and I
Mhm.
just love what she's doing. From my understanding, she was writing a book, a different book, and then she just seemed to be more inspired to start doing children's books, which have been very popular. Can you tell us what
Thank
got
you.
you into that?
Yeah, so I think it all really kind of started with this health advocacy stuff and trying to understand like why are people seemingly doing healthy things and getting sick? Like I don't get it. Like in my family and externally and so I did a year-long health coach training program, which you and I are both graduates of. And then when COVID hit, it was like, okay, well, I'm not going to do health coaching now, but like I learned a bunch of stuff. And so I thought, well, I'll write a book because that's kind of like when I can work on it. I can work on it. And then with little kids, I think they were like 1 and 5 at the time. It was like, not the season of deep thoughts. And in our mastermind, when our coach, our mentor was challenging us basically to think like smaller, like to think more short term. And so like in 6 weeks, basically what you create that's like fun and there's a product at the end, right? And so I thought, well, in my head, I don't know if it's the kid shows I watch or like having the little ones, but like rhymes are really easy for me. I like to sketch. At the time, like I only sketched if I was like drawing on in chalk, on the sidewalk with the kids. And so, but I thought, well, maybe I could turn that into a kid's book. And so I did my first book. I'm getting new glasses in like 6 weeks and turned it around. And then it was kind of like, oh, I can write and illustrate kids' books. Let's lean into this. And so that one published in August. And I think since then I've done four. I have four out now.
Wow.
And it's just kind of something that I think is very fun and I can just kind of roll with it now. And so yeah, and a lot of like kind of my background, again, going back to all the health advocacy stuff and my interest in that, I think kind of shows itself in some of my books, because I see that like health is like the basis of everything. Like if you're not healthy, you can't do anything. And so that's reflected a
Right.
lot in my kids.
That's
Yeah.
I'm definitely
So,
behind that too, because a lot of people they focus so much on making money, which is nice, but it
mhm.
doesn't matter
Yeah.
if you're not healthy
Yeah.
to enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah. Or like efficiency and just pushing ourselves so hard.
Yes.
And like I'm completely guilty of this. Like this week and last week too, it's like I get like my brain's thinking so fast and I can tell like my jaw is clenched because I'm trying to do stuff and I'm really not effective when I am in that mode. And I've just kind of noticed too in the last several weeks, we had a friend that we were going to meet for dinner who got a migraine. And I was attending a speaker event I was really excited about, and the speaker got a migraine. And then, one of the administrators that my kids work with, like she got a migraine. And I'm just like, it just
Yeah.
I feel like we're putting so much pressure on ourselves. And maybe this is a whole other conversation, but I guess it just goes back to that knowing how to read our bodies, read our mental
Yes.
state. What can we do to fuel ourselves so that we're having fewer of these hangups? Because I think oh gosh, I'm gonna sound like an old fart. Like the ounce of prevention is worth like a pound of cure. Like so, if we just like on the front end like do the work, then like hopefully the other stuff won't happen. So,
Yeah, that is true. We're both very passionate about health advocacy because we've seen things and I've seen so many people. I
yeah.
personally got sick in the past, but mine has nothing. I'm sure some of it had to do with a little bit of
Yeah.
stress, but mine also was related to environmental, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's so many
And I think
things,
some
but
of it, like, yes, sometimes it's just like the hand that you're dealt, but I think I see like the statistic thrown around that like 80-90% of our sickness is caused by stress. And
yes.
like, if you think about it, like, yeah, and some of that we can kind of mitigate if we make the right choices.
And I think what's good about, like you said, your children's books, you're just showing them that you got to teach them at a younger, I shouldn't say teach, but guide them at a younger age
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
focus on the importance of health,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. And I think that's like the interesting thing about it that I learned, because I always thought growing up, like, oh, it's about calories and it's about like exercising or walking or like, and there are things that like apply to everybody, but there's things that like are very different. And so like you're an avid runner, like you love running. I don't want to run. Even if somebody's chasing me, I don't want to run. I would rather hide, you know? And so if we both need movement, but like what's the best way for us to move? So I would rather walk, or I would rather do yoga, or I would rather do like a body pump workout or something. Like, so we just it's yes, there are ways that everybody kind of needs to like guidelines that we all need to like follow, but like it's
Right.
so specific to
And
each of us.
that's
And yeah.
what you were
So,
saying
and
is
that's where I think it's cool to teach kids. Yeah.
they need to know what's good for them. And I didn't know what was good for me. I
Mhm.
didn't know this until I was
Mhm.
older. And
Yeah.
I've tried different things. That's why I recommend people try and to mix it up, even though I'm a runner, but I
Mhm.
still do a lot of yoga, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that because you've got to have the yin and yang. Is that the right word?
Mhm.
You've
Yeah.
got to
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
that. And
Mhm.
I've learned to I did the nutrition certification, right? You did that as well.
Mhm.
Because I was trying to figure
Mhm.
out why, that has a lot to do with your health. I think their health is related to like the three pillars. It is about what you eat, nutrition, your
Mhm.
type of rest that you're getting, which includes yoga, and then movement, which is good
Mhm.
for you, right? I
Mhm.
think it is. And I'm not a cyclist, right? So people, I'm I'm just like, that's just kind of me with cycling, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I would,
Yeah.
but some people love it.
Yeah.
And
And I think
it's,
too, like what's interesting is that like basically like everything is affecting our health and like our mental state. And so
yes,
even like the people that we're around or the activities we do. And so like with my own kids, I try to, teach them like, okay, like how do you feel when you're watching TV? Like you get done, you're overstimulated, you're crying, like it doesn't feel good. How do you feel when you go outside and you play? How do you feel when you ride your bike? Because we have to start developing that awareness
yes,
to figure out what fuels us, because it's not going to be in a book, and it's not going to be, like you're the one who like determines that. And so, but it's everything. And, when we talk about stress, if people like grown-ups are, having financial stress or stress at their job, then they're not going to be healthy, if they're dealing with that. And so it's just like everything. And so, and I guess it's just, becoming a parent. It's like you want your kids to like not have to deal with the stuff that you did and like to know what you didn't know. And so really when I write my books, a lot of it, it's like, what do I want them to take with them? That like they're so open to information and knowledge right now.
that is
That like I
good.
feel like, yeah, it's like the time to like fill them up with it.
I
So
think when they're young, they're more open to different perspectives, right? They're
hmm
not
hmm
set in
yeah.
a
Yeah.
in a box, right?
Yeah.
They're more open,
Yeah. Well, and like
and
most
that's
grown-ups, like, hey, let's talk about diet and weight loss. Ooh, like nobody wants to talk about that. So, well, we want to talk about that, you and me, Bridget.
right, right, right. But I try not
But
to push
probably
that.
nobody else.
It's really more
So
about
yeah,
being an
so if you can like
example.
make it fun and personal, then
And you have to
there.
be, as the parent, you're making it as you're the example as well, which I think is helpful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And my family, even though before I became certified in nutrition to understand it, I was always been into vegetables. That's just my body was telling me you need to eat more vegetables, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
my
Yeah.
nickname as a kid, my mom called me the rabbit, and because I was always but that's just something as an example. You've got to listen to your body. My body wasn't telling me to
Yeah.
eat a whole bunch of cheese, or
Yeah. Yeah.
which we
Yeah.
found out later that it's not good for me, my personal,
Yeah. Isn't that
experience.
interesting? Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
that is an example. And so, what do your kids like to eat, right? And what you feed them is what they're gonna get used to eating. And I
Mhm.
really, yeah,
Mhm.
I've written so much stuff about nutrition. I'm not gonna, but just from my personal experience and what I've learned at the certification that we did, it's just amazing that we're all so different, but I never really thought about that until I went through the
Mhm.
right, went through the school.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just, yeah, I never realized how much everything is affecting us. Like it's they kind of presented it as like spokes on a wheel or that kind of thing,
Yeah,
and
right.
in my head I'm always trying to think like I probably need to do the exercise. Like what are my personal spokes on the wheel, or like what because like if a significant thing is out of whack, then we just get thrown. And I think that like all that stress or like discontentment or whatever, like it manifests in our bodies, like because our bodies carry with us, all these experiences and struggles and stressors, and like it doesn't go away. It just kind of
I
like
think
it'll show up somewhere.
it
So
will, and I think like you mentioned, the spokes on a wheel. Yeah, I think it's. I know I'm a runner, but I don't run every day. But I do make time to rest. I have to because you have to recover from that, and I think a lot of people aren't making time for that, Beth. They're trying to put so much on
yeah.
their to-do list. They're not resting. It has nothing. You don't have to do yoga, but you just gotta have to give
Yeah.
yourself enough
Yeah.
time to rest. And
Yeah.
ah, I've always been a little hyper. Maybe that's why I don't have caffeine, by the way. I'm naturally wired that way, I think. Right?
Yeah.
You don't want me on
I
caffeine,
kind of feel that way too. Yeah.
right? It's not
Yeah.
good for me. And my
Yeah.
doctor, telling me caffeine can increase your cortisol levels, which affects your stress, right? And it's just so many
Yeah.
little, under the multiple layers in our lives of what we're doing.
Mhm.
And I think
Yeah.
being a mom of boys, I think, yeah, you're a mom of boys too. That was a
Mhm.
challenge, but I enjoyed it because I learned from them as well. I wasn't just telling them how to eat, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you learn from them because they look at things differently, and they're happier when they do what they want to do, not with mom telling them. But dude, mine are
Yeah.
adults, but
Yeah.
it's just
Mine still have that. Mine totally.
right. You're
They
still in
still
that
want to
phase.
do what they want to do. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what's different, I think, with your kids and my kids, and that they didn't have so much technology. Mine are in their 20s now. They didn't have as much, so the
Mhm.
technology just started
Yeah.
coming out. I'm sure that's a challenge for you as well, right? Or maybe
It's a challenge. And I think like we minimize like a lot of the screens, and like we don't do the devices. My oldest is 8, so we can kind of like rein in some of that. I think the hardest thing for me, I don't really watch TV because I think most of it's dribble anyway.
right.
The hardest thing for me is that when I'm exhausted, that's when I'll turn on the TV, and it's really not good for anybody, but I feel like okay, it'll get them occupied for a minute. And so that's the hard thing, is like not using it as like my crutch. I feel like because they want it when it's available. And like I was saying, like I can see how it affects them. Like they're already tired, like they're crying, it's overstimulating. It's and I've really been working at if we're tired, if our we've had a long day, we need to go outside. Like so I'm kind of a big proponent of like grounding, right? And it's so good to be like in nature and get fresh air and be with
Yes.
in the trees, and like and so that's really what I try to do, because I think that they need healthy boundaries with technology now, because they're growing up with it. So like your kids, it was kind of like it was sort of there and then it's there, and I
Right.
guess I feel like I have the opportunity to be like it's here and we're not going to let it consume us. Like we're going to like use it from a healthy way. um but even stuff like they have an app that they use that's like books, and they like to read it before bedtime. And even that, I'm like, the screen is like messing with your brain, and like it is a book, but it's still stimulating. And so I don't want that right before bedtime, because you're going to rest better if you turn that stuff off.
With
So yeah, just trying to like from the beginning set good boundaries, healthy boundaries, so that
well, I
they
think
kind of see that like
what you just said about the books, that was one thing I did for them. I got them to like books because
yeah.
my husband, I read physical books to them at bedtime. That was our routine. And like I said, we didn't
Yeah.
have, I mean, we had a computer, but it was, in the basement office. It wasn't upstairs.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
wanted them to get
yeah.
into that. And I think that's why my son got into animals. right? Because he was obsessed with dinosaurs. I'm just sure your kids,
Yeah,
mine
yeah.
was obsessed with dinosaurs for some reason. And he got a
Yes.
degree in biology because he was wanted to know how things worked, right? And
Oh, I love that. I love
right.
that.
And then my younger son, he was younger, he was more got into tech because I should say tech because he started doing video games, which is kind of hard when they're teenagers to not, and I learned, but now
Yeah.
he's in tech development, right? Or software development because I let them do that when they were teenagers, certain
Yeah.
things, but I also
Yeah.
encourage them to find a sport that they liked, what they were good at.
Yeah.
And,
Mhm.
but I didn't force them. They were good at certain things, but you'll understand when they get older. But people are
Well,
like,
no,
what?
and yeah, no, I totally get it because
Yeah.
I think like for me, one of the most important things I can do is like not tell them where their life needs to go, but guide them towards like who
Yes,
they are and where
guide.
it's supposed to go. And so like I think like, your son that got into tech, like that's fantastic. Like that's where he was leaning. And yeah, I think we just kind of do it like with safe parameters and like, guide them and teach them as we can. Yeah, I mean, I think it's great. And I can see like the difference in my two that like, I have one that it's black and white, it's technical, like he loves structures and building. And I'm like, this is like an engineer in the making.
Right.
And then the other one is like very creative and will like sing and like independent draw and color. And I'm like,
That's
okay,
mine.
like
Right.
yeah. And so I think it's fantastic. Like
Embrace it.
yeah, I in no way want to like push them towards where they go because I also think like, I mean, how many people do you know that hate their jobs?
A
And so if
lot.
they can like, yeah, so if they can like learn what they're passionate about and what they like and get in a field that like fuels them instead of drains them, I just think like that's huge. I mean, how much of our lives do we spend at work? Like 80% of our life? Like that's like my go-to statistic. Everything's 80% today. Um
Right.
but yeah, I just think like all that's good and all of that fuels health and all of that, like is good for kids. So
You mentioned nature too. That's really important to our
mm,
family, and we bought a house on purpose that was near woods and stuff like that. So
yeah.
they appreciate that, and they are really thinking back about God. I spoiled them, but I'm just kidding. But I want them to really understand that to me, you have to get outside. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we did a lot of hiking and boating with our kids,
Yeah.
even though their sports varied. One was the younger one, the tech guy, was really good at ice hockey. That was
Yeah.
expensive, but he liked it and he wanted to do it. And but then when he graduated high school, he said, "I've had enough." Right? But which
Hmm.
is we're like,
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
but it's him, not me, playing hockey,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, but he now they'll find what they're good at. And so I'm assuming you do stuff like that, go to adventures with your kids. I should say adventures, hiking
Yeah,
and
I mean, I have to. So we live in South Texas and it gets very, very hot and
oh
very
yeah, it's
humid.
hot down there.
There's not a lot of shade. I'm like, I would love to someday get to where like we have seasons and like more like trees and hiking trails and stuff. We did move to a home that has like more shaded trees and stuff like that. I'm not a beach person, which is
Me
kind of like a
either.
bummer because you're like yeah. And so but we do like we travel a lot and like we love to go to like we spend a lot of time in North Carolina like hiking like in the mountains there. And
That's perfect.
yeah, yeah, I just like and here thankfully like our yard is a decent size so they can like run and like this week I've been taking out because it's already warm enough like their little kiddie pool and they'll just like run and play and like it's the best and it's just simple and so and I can tell like them being outside like they're happier and they're it's kind of like they're decompressing and they're getting more creative like this morning they asked if they could like use a little ribbon around the house. They took this huge spool and like made an obstacle course everywhere. And I was trying to clean it up because everything was like a trip hazard, every room, but like you can tell they're thinking more and they're not like, oh, we want to get on the TV. Like they're
That's
like it's like
perfect.
fueling them and energizing. Yeah. And so like to be able to just see like there's a direct effect to them like being able to like be outside and like decompress and like create like it's just all related like it's just you can see like instant results it's amazing.
and you're
So,
creating good memories for them, right? You want to have,
yeah, I hope so. They do
yeah,
have they have good memories. I forget it all, but yeah, they did.
right.
I'm
It
like, wait,
just,
what?
right. It's just so much. I mean, I enjoy being around kids when they were younger, and
Mhm.
it's just so important. I just think it's so cool that my understanding you were, like I mentioned at the beginning, writing another book, and then you went to the kids' books. So, kind of what
Mhm.
triggered that? Was it COVID that triggered that again?
The wanting to write books or
Right.
the
What
kids'
was
book.
that? You mentioned something about, I think, your grandmother.
Yeah. I mean, I had always wanted to write a book. I just kind of knew like I remember as a kid making a list of things I wanted to do and I wanted to learn Spanish and play piano and write a book. Like that was just my things. And but I never, I guess I always thought like I don't know enough. I don't know how to do that. Like I don't know. There was just it wasn't time to write a book. And then during COVID, it was like my brain, I guess kind of like yours, it was just so busy. And I had all these ideas. And I remember sitting in the backyard one day watching the kids play, and I was like, what am I gonna do with all this stuff? Like it just like would antagonize me. And then like I'd chew on it and it'd be gone. And I was like, I don't know what to do with it. And so I did start trying to write a book, but I was kind of like writing in circles. And I think that my life phase wasn't consistent with the message I was trying to convey. And really, it was taking like my expectations out of the equation, I think, because I'm just naturally very like too serious and like I want to do well and I want to be professional and I want to, whatever. And I think like removing all that pressure from myself and just being like, I'm going to create something that's fun and it's easy and I enjoy it. And that's what happened with the books. And it's really interesting too, because when I'm around the kids, it really fuels my creativity. It's not like, oh, they need to go away so I can have deep thoughts. Like we can like coexist. I'm
Right.
like, I can, it fuels it. And then it's simple. And so if I'm like pulled away or someone's homesick or like whatever, I can pick it back up really quickly. So yeah, so it just kind of works with like the lifestyle that, the phase that we're in and my desire to like, create and do something impactful, like leave something, like that kind of
For your
thing.
kids, right? And
Yeah.
I think your kids inspired you subconsciously to do this anyway. I think, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They
Yeah,
inspired
I think
you.
so. And I think yeah, I think like the challenge we had was just nice because I didn't have time to make excuses about it. I didn't have time to be like, I don't know how to illustrate. How do I publish it? Like it was just like a challenge and I figured it out. And so I think that was really the beauty of like a condensed timeline and sort of like, I guess, the good pressure of like having a reason to do it and not just like the excuse to do it later
Right.
or like that doesn't matter or whatever. So so yeah, so it really is it's very amazing to me how like kind of my perspective and outlook and kind of work product, if you will, like changed completely in like such a short time frame. But I feel like it's really been like for the better. So I'm
That's
really
good.
happy. Like I feel like it yeah, it was just I feel like it was really like such a gift to like be able to find an outlet that is enjoyable and that I love and so
I think one of your books, isn't it something to do with nutrition? I think.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Can
So
you
I have
talk?
a book.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I brought one because I knew we were talking about nutrition. So it's called When I Take Care of Me.
Uh-huh.
And it really this was kind of another one that just kind of came and it I hope that when parents read it, it's more of a conversation, but it goes through the ABCs of like, I feel awesome when I eat apples. And, but it also kind of creates the opportunity to be like, I don't like apples, but I feel awesome when whatever, like, because there's that, like,
Eat an
what's
apricot,
unique about
right?
it.
Right.
Yeah, you eat an apricot or do aerobics or do fly in an airplane or, like, what do
Uh-huh.
you like?
Oh, love it.
And so, yeah, so that one, so yeah, it's a real simple, just kind of goes through the ABCs. But yeah, that's what more than anything, I just hope that it helps people have a conversation with their kids and even makes us think as adults, like, golly, what was my I was thinking, I wrote on one of the pages, I feel it was I had when I unplug, oh, unstoppable when I unplug, so like
Oh,
as a grown up, like we need to turn it off and we will feel
Yes.
better when we shut off our screens. And so I really tried to think about things that we all need to learn, but we can customize, we can tweak, and um, because I think it's a life skill and it's something that we're just not learning. Like it's not in our curriculums at school. It's not
No.
being taught like in the medical profession. They're so focused on like how do we fix people and these sick people and the symptoms and like, and so we really need to get to the root of like why are we so sick and how can we be better? And it's not foolproof because like we said, like there's health stuff that comes up and I had something, the last couple of weeks that I've been dealing with and like it wasn't anything I did. It's probably my genes, I have fair
Right.
skin and yeah, getting cut up and it was not anything I did, but there are things that we can prevent and we feel better when we,
And
do
it's
when we're
definitely got to get
proactive.
your definitely got to, get your foundation, right? Which I think truly
Mhm.
is
Mhm.
understanding yourself, eating, or like your
Mhm.
your book, I think it'd be really helpful to what you just shared. And I just love that you're just trying to inspire people and using it through a kid's book is
Oh,
really,
thank
really
you.
helpful. I think
I like
I
the
worry about the
simplicity.
generation. I do worry about the younger generation. I don't know why. Um, but
Mhm.
you wanna
Mhm.
but look, we can learn from each other, and that's why you need to interact with them.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I totally agree. You had mentioned about schools aren't teaching them these things
Mhm.
about how to eat. Back in the
Mhm.
day, I'm really old. I remember taking cooking classes in middle school. I don't know if you had that.
Oh.
That
Mm-mm.
was in the 70s, but he taught you to learn how to. I thought that was important. They don't do that now.
See? Well, and like I didn't even learn to cook until like one when I got married, and then two when I found out that I had like pretty serious food sensitivities. And
Right.
so then when I learned, like, guess what? You can't eat everything that you eat. Then I had to figure out creative ways, to
And I
like
think
cook and feed our family. And yeah, because then my son, he had stuff. And so it was like, you just have to like I don't I feel like if you're eating wrong, if you're like not taking care of like yourself the way that you need, it just causes a bunch of problems. And
right. I'm the
and I
same.
I personally like I see these rates of like obesity and diabetes and depression and all this stuff that I feel like if we were taking care of ourselves better and eating the right stuff and moving and doing activities that like we're passionate about, a lot of that would be gone and we would help other people. We would
Be
interact with people
reduced,
better.
right?
And like it all, yeah, it's just all interconnected.
Another,
Um,
what I based on my health issues I had, that's one of the reasons I did the nutrition stuff after I had all these
yeah.
health issues because I wanted like one of my doctors tested me for celiac disease. I don't have that, but
Hmm.
we found I have a sensitivity to casein protein, which is dairy, and that's in everything, Beth. I don't,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
why I don't,
Yeah.
real food to me doesn't have a label on there. That's just
Right.
how I
Right.
look at it. I learned that
Yeah.
after, I'm not saying having the dairy issue caused cancer, probably didn't help, correct? Because
Right.
my
Well, and
body
there's
was
so many, if it's not dairy, it's preservatives, it's all this
something,
junk that they add in. And my big kid came home from school and he had I guess like should I not say brands? So he came home and he was like, all my kids are eating this little pre-packaged snacky thing for lunch and I want it too. And I was like, okay, I can buy you that. I was like, let me show you it on my little grocery app. I
right?
was like, these are the ingredients. Like, this is what I'll be feeding you if I give you this for lunch. And he's like, I don't want that. I said, okay, all right, well then
Right.
I'll keep making your lunch, But because like people just think like we're moving so fast, we want convenience. Um,
We should
these
slow
food
down.
companies like, yeah, yeah, and these food companies, I mean, they're trying to like okay, so my background's business. I'm not trying to be like
No,
crazy,
I
but
understand. My
like
background
they
is too.
have like healthy profit margins and like so they're going to use cheap ingredients and they're going to use preservatives and they're going to use when I first learned about like the bliss point where these food companies are like creating foods so that like it's the maximum amount of like you just love it so much and it's like you crave more. Like, I mean, that's just not healthy stuff to eat. So, so yeah, I could like go on a whole thing about
Oh yeah,
all
it's
that.
we should do a episode just on nutrition because that is just so
Yeah.
so
It's
bizarre.
really kind
And
of scary, and it's and it's golly, I'm just trying to like not go down a rabbit hole right now. But like I guess back to the kids and stuff, what I really try to focus on is like when it comes up like that, I can use an example and like that's a teaching moment. But I feel
right,
like as much as I can like encourage healthy habits and like cook at home and like, I mean, we do like eat out, sometimes like we have certain restaurants we'll try to go to, sometimes we'll get pizza. But I feel like, again, kind of like the 80-20 rule, like I try to do 80% of it's clean and eating at home and healthy. And then when you have like some of the other stuff, like, okay, it's not as impactful because it's not the majority of what you're consuming.
right. And
Yeah.
it's so different. Everybody, again, is different. And I just think
Mhm.
we just need to listen to our bodies and
Mhm.
help your kids. You did a great job with your son showing him the ingredients on that.
Thank you.
And
Well,
we
I'm just
weren't
like, I
taught
don't want you eating that stuff.
we
Like,
weren't
well,
taught that when we were young, right? We weren't taught that at
yeah.
all.
Well, and like
And
I grew up like in the 80s and 90s, and it was like kind of like the height of like processed cereal and granola bars and all these things. And so like I have an issue with gluten. So like everything I was eating was making me sick. I didn't know it. And
right.
then I mean, talk about like all the added sugar and stuff. Like, I mean, it's just and it was when like TV dinners were like the thing. And
Yes.
I don't know. It was just all stuff that like it wasn't real food. So,
No, and yeah, it's just crazy. And I was just thinking
yeah.
while you were talking that your book, have you done a book reading with that? I think that'd be a good idea to do a book reading somewhere. Like,
Yeah, I have. Well, I have a little book reading that I did when it came in just so people could see it on YouTube.
uh-huh.
Um, I haven't gotten to I need to kind of slow my roll because I'm having so much fun creating kids books. I write it and then I like move to the next one and I need to really like squeeze the juice out of the lemon and like do stuff with my books.
I'm the same. We're
But
on the same page, Beth.
yeah. So, but one thing that I would really like to do, and it's just kind of in my head, but I want to turn this little book into a coloring book.
Yeah.
Um, and then maybe have like some activity pages or something where the kids can like customize it to them. And I would love to get it in schools. I feel
That'd be
like as a
perfect.
supplemental material, it could help the teachers, even if it's not a full nutrition curriculum, it could still be a supplemental, discussion that opens the conversation.
It would
And I think
spark
that would be
those
valuable.
it would spark those creative kids. I think it's a great idea. That book would be good for
Thank you.
schools, public and private,
Yeah.
right? That's just my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and even like homeschools,
Yeah.
but yeah, I feel like that's on me because instead of contacting, doing outreach and doing readings and whatever, I'm like just working on the next one in my living room with my
It's
cats.
hard. It's hard to do that. I understand that. And your boys are keeping you busy. And
They are.
it's a
They
good
are. Yeah.
it's a
And I
good
think
problem.
that's why the books are so appealing to me because I can just kind of like I don't know if the word is like check out, but just like in a healthy way, like clear my head and like have an outlet. Like that's really what it is for me is like as a productive person, it gives me like, oh, look, I did something, I can see the product. Um,
You have
but yeah,
evidence.
it's
You have evidence, right?
yeah, yeah, evidence. I did not just sit on the couch all day.
Well, this is
So,
such a good conversation that we're having. So, where
yes.
can people learn more about you, Beth? Where can they reach
I
out?
think probably, yeah, the best place to go would be my website. It's just my full name. So BethAnnRamos.com. No E on the Ann, ANN. And yeah, I've got information about my books there, information like links to social media and stuff, but that's probably the best way to find me.
I
Mhm.
appreciate that. And for those listening, I will have the link in the description for this podcast episode. I think it's so much fun, Beth, and we definitely should talk again and just focus
Yeah.
on nutrition since we both went to the
We'll just
same
like geek
school.
out.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad. We love to geek out about food
Yes.
and we understand all this stuff. Thank you
Yeah.
again for your
Yeah.
time, Beth.
Thank you. It was fun.